Joining me now is John Brennan, the former director of CIA. He's now NBC's senior national security and intelligence analyst. Welcome very much. Good to see you, John. We're seeing satellite photos. I've talked to sources, Courtney Kube has as well, confirming all of this information, Wall Street Journal as well. A lot of signs that North Korea is continuing to build. They discontinued testing months and months ago, as the president has said, with great pride. But the fact is, if they're now building, could this mean that they finished testing because they were moving to a new production stage?
Hey, congratulations on 40 years of outstanding professionalism. You've done a great job in educating the American public on some very difficult and complicated issues, and so you're to be commended for that. I don't think it should surprise anybody what we may be seeing in North Korea right now. The agreement, the so-called agreement that was forged in Singapore between Mr. Trump and Kim Jong-un basically said nothing more than they'll work toward denuclearization with great uncertainty about what they mean by denuclearization. And so their continued efforts to either produce fissile material, and there are reports that that continues, as well as continue to develop their intercontinental ballistic missile capability. And these ICBMs are ones that can reach the American homeland. So I think Kim Jong-un is taking advantage of this time right now to continue to develop his capabilities, both in terms of his nuclear program and the ballistic missile capabilities to deliver those nuclear warheads. So I think this is something to be greatly concerned about. I know Mike Pompeo is trying to negotiate some type of arrangement, but again, it's not surprising at all, given the continued assessment, I believe, of the intelligence community that Kim Jong-un has no intention to give up his nuclear weapons.
Well, here's what the president said at the VFW event only a week ago about the Singapore summit.
We had a fantastic meeting with Chairman Kim, and it seems to be going very well.
How difficult is it for his intelligence advisors and his Secretary of State now to try to inject some reality into these negotiations when the president is bragging about it publicly?
Well, it must be very difficult for them to try to convey to him the seriousness of the issue and to make sure that he understands what is and is not happening. Clearly, Mr. Trump continues to grandstand and to say things publicly that are far removed from the truth. I'm reminded of Hamlet's soliloquy in terms of full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And I think a lot of times we hear Mr. Trump spout out on these issues, whether it be on the meeting with Mr. Putin or Kim Jong-un or others, and there's not much there. And these are very, very serious issues that really affect U.S. national security. And I'm hoping that all of his advisors and the intelligence community are taking the issue seriously, as I'm confident they are. Mr. Trump has to do the same thing. He has to understand it's not just a question of how to express what he believes or what he wants people to believe is happening. He really needs to make progress on these very thorny national security issues.
A couple of weeks ago, just as Secretary Pompeo was having some difficulty in Pyongyang getting them to live up to commitments, you heard from John Bolton on one of the Sunday talk shows saying, well, Pompeo can maybe do this in a year or so. I asked Dan Coates about that, and he was very explicit. You know, you can't denuclearize North Korea in a year. What's your projection?
Well, I think this is, if we're serious about having North Korea denuclearize or move along that path, it's going to require some patience, as well as to understand that to dismantle their nuclear and ballistic missile programs, which means to destroy the warheads, to tear down or to dismantle those facilities that produce the fissile material, the machining and the engineering facilities. All of this is part of that program, and if we're really going to have them denuclearize, there has to be a very comprehensive plan and program to be able to get them to move along that path. But so far, I've seen nothing at all. North Korea says it's dismantled or destroyed its testing facility. Well, it's already tested a nuclear device a half dozen times. For North Korean standards of reliability, I think that's sufficient. And so therefore, they continue to grow that stockpile, as well as to better develop the capabilities to deliver the warheads to potential targets.
I want to also ask you about the president after the fiery threats against Iran and its regime only a week or so ago, was saying yesterday he would talk to the leader of Iran with no preconditions. The Secretary of State quickly fixed that, or tried to fix it on CNBC by listing 3 specific preconditions. But What about the president's attitude towards these meetings with leaders of rogue states or other adversaries?
Well, I think it reflects two things. One is that he makes up foreign policy on the fly, and so whatever comes into his mind, he decides to say it. Secondly, I think he has a greatly, greatly inflated view of his ability to move the needle on some of these key national security issues, whether it be on North Korea or Russia or Iran. And therefore, when he says, I'm willing to meet with anyone anytime, I believe that he means it. But I don't think he understands just how complex these issues are. And also, he probably realizes that the Iranians are not going to take him at his word, because his word really has been proved to be worthless. He is not somebody who is you able to actually pin down on some of these issues.
This is the first chance I've had to talk to you since the threats from the White House to strip you of your security clearance. They followed up on that, and what are the implications of it for you?
Well, I have heard nothing other than what has come out from the White House spokesperson. I'm not surprised that this is something that Rand Paul has thought up. Rand Paul is not on the Intelligence Committee. I don't know anybody in the intelligence and national security realms who takes what Rand Paul says seriously, but he continues to spout off on these issues, and so he got Mr. Trump's ear. I don't know what's going to happen, but you know, they have a real flawed understanding about what security clearances mean. I've gone back to the agency a number of times to review my files so I can be prepared for congressional committee hearings, as well as interviews by staff. But I don't go back to the agency and get briefings. I've never requested a briefing on any issue over the past year and a half since I left government. So again, this is Mr. Paul, Senator Paul, and Mr. Trump just trying to make some public hay by saying these things. But again, I have heard nothing more about it since last week.
Well, John Brennan, thank you as always, and thank you for your good thoughts. It really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Best wishes.
Thanks. And joining us now, we have breaking news from the...
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.